Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into a topic that's reshaping enterprise operations across Europe, Agentic AI and how it's transforming Den Haag specifically. We're talking autonomous agents, multi-agent systems, and the complex dance of staying compliant with the EU AI Act while scaling these powerful technologies. Sam, when you first heard about this shift from chatbots to actual autonomous agents, what was your initial reaction?
Honestly, Alex, it felt like the industry finally caught up to what the researchers have been saying for years. But here's what makes this moment critical for DenHog specifically. This isn't some Silicon Valley hype. These are government agencies, financial institutions, and legal firms that operate in one of the world's most regulated environments, and they're actually moving to deploy these systems. That's the real story.
Right. And that's what makes Den Haag so interesting as a case study. It's the judicial and political heart of the Netherlands, so compliance isn't optional. It's embedded in the DNA. The research shows 78% of organizations globally plan to deploy Agentic AI by 2026, but I imagine the percentage is even higher when you factor in organizations that have to comply with EU regulations. What's the fundamental difference between what we had before and what these new agentic systems actually do?
That's the essential distinction. Traditional chatbots are reactive. You ask them a question, they respond. Period. Agentic AI flips that model entirely. These systems are proactive. They pursue long-term goals, make decisions across multiple steps, orchestrate workflows, and do it all without constant human intervention. In Den Haag's context, imagine a system that doesn't just answer a question about permit processing. It actually processes permits autonomously, flags issues, coordinates with other systems, and adapts when regulations change.
So it's moving from answer the question in front of you to achieve the outcome we defined and handle whatever comes up. That's a massive shift in capability and responsibility. And those capabilities come with some serious architectural challenges, right? I'm thinking specifically about multi-agent systems.
Exactly. A single monolithic agent has real limitations. When you're dealing with a complex regulatory environment like Den Haag's, you need specialized agents handling different domains. Think of it like this. You have one agent focused purely on compliance monitoring, another handling document processing, another managing customer interactions, and another auditing everything. They all need to work together seamlessly.
So you're describing what's called an agent mesh architecture. Can you walk us through a concrete example? Let's say we're talking about a financial institution in Den Haag. What would that actually look like operationally?
Perfect example. You've got a compliance agent continuously monitoring regulatory changes and updating policies in real time. You've got a document agent processing contracts and analyzing them using RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, so it actually understands context. You've got a customer service agent handling inquiries while respecting data privacy regulations, and you've got an audit agent constantly validating that everything stays compliant. The orchestration layer is the traffic controller, managing communication between all these agents and handling handoffs when one needs to pass work to another.
That sounds powerful, but also incredibly complex. How do organizations even start choosing between different agent frameworks? I imagine there's a decision tree a mile long.
There absolutely is. The market's gotten crowded fast. You've got options like LangGraph, AutoGen, Crew AI, and cloud-native solutions from AWS and Azure. But here's what matters when you're evaluating: cost per execution, token efficiency, how it manages context windows, compatibility with MCP servers, and critically for Den Haag organizations, whether it actually supports EU AI Act compliance features. You can't just pick the hottest framework. You need one that's built for your regulatory reality.
That last point is huge. We keep circling back to the EU AI Act, and for good reason. Organizations are sitting at this intersection where they need cutting-edge capability, and they need to stay compliant with regulations that are still being refined. How real is that tension?
It's the defining challenge for 2026, honestly. The EU AI Act is now in effect, but many of its implementation details are still being clarified. For Den Haag organizations, particularly in legal and financial sectors, the stakes are higher than most. You're dealing with systems handling sensitive data, making autonomous decisions, and potentially affecting people's rights. You can't deploy an agent system and then figure out compliance later. It has to be architected in from the beginning.
So you need to think about compliance not as a compliance layer you add on top, but as a fundamental part of how the agent system is designed. What does that actually look like in practice?
It means you're building guardrails directly into the agent's decision-making logic. You're implementing audit trails from the ground up so you can always explain why an agent made a specific decision. You're designing transparency mechanisms that let stakeholders understand what data the agent is using and how it's reasoning. And you're building in real-time monitoring so humans can intervene if something goes sideways. It's not about restricting capability, it's about building trustworthy capability.
That's the framing I think people need to hear. It's not regulation versus innovation. It's regulation enabling sustainable innovation. Now, one thing that came up in the research is cost optimization. 78% of organizations planning these deployments, but agents aren't free to run. What's the cost picture actually look like?
Cost optimization is critical and often overlooked. You're paying for every token your agent processes, every API call it makes, every iteration it runs through. In multi-agent systems, you multiply those costs across multiple specialized agents. The organizations winning at this aren't the ones with unlimited budgets. They're the ones optimizing token efficiency, reducing unnecessary iterations, and designing workflows that accomplish goals with minimum computational overhead. It's almost like a new form of engineering discipline.
So it's not just about, can we afford this, but how do we build this efficiently so we can actually scale it? I imagine there are specific strategies for that.
Absolutely. You're looking at things like prompt optimization to reduce token usage, smart caching strategies so you're not reprocessing the same information, and careful context window management. You're also designing agent workflows to be more deterministic where possible, less exploration, more directed action, and you're using smaller, specialized models for specific tasks rather than running everything through your largest model. It's about matching task complexity to model capability.
That makes sense. So we've got this picture emerging of Den Haag organizations needing to navigate multi-agent architecture, EU AI Act compliance, and cost optimization all at the same time. That's a lot of moving parts. What's the one thing you'd tell an organization that's starting this journey right now?
Start with clarity on your specific use cases and workflows. Don't try to boil the ocean. Pick a high-value workflow in your organization, something that's currently consuming significant time and expertise, and build an agentic solution for that. You'll learn invaluable lessons about architecture, compliance, cost, and operationalization. Then you scale from there. The organizations that succeed are the ones moving methodically, not the ones trying to deploy agents everywhere at once.
That's smart advice. Start focused, learn the real constraints, then scale. And we should emphasize that this is an ongoing conversation, right? The regulatory landscape is evolving, the technology is evolving, best practices are still being established.
Right. Organizations should be thinking of their agent implementations as living systems that evolve. What's compliant today might need adjustment as regulations clarify. What's cost-efficient now might improve as new frameworks emerge. Build with that flexibility in mind and stay connected to the community learning.
That's a perfect place to wrap up. If you want to dig deeper into this, and trust me, there's a lot more detail around multi-agent orchestration, specific compliance strategies for Den Haag enterprises, and practical implementation frameworks. Head over to etherlink.ai and find the full article. You'll get concrete examples, evaluation criteria for agent SDKs, and a detailed breakdown of how the world's leading organizations are approaching this transition. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Always a pleasure, Alex. This is genuinely one of the most important technology transitions enterprises are navigating right now, and Den Haag is positioned to be a leader because of its regulatory sophistication. Interesting times ahead.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in to EtherLink AI Insights. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the future of enterprise AI. See you next time.